Welcome to the Enchoris podcast. Welcome to our guest, Ines Rainer from CREATIVE.NRW in German, NRW for those outside Germany. Very happy that we're going to get to talk today about what's happening here in the state of North Rhine-Westphalia when it comes to the creative industries, creative cultural spaces, co-creation, cross-innovation. We're going to go through some of the CREATIVE.NRW challenges and projects that are run by the institution you're part of. And we're going to talk with Ines a bit about her journey to her current position and the things that drive her. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you for accepting the invitation. We had a great talk at the Machwerk a while ago, which is a new space in town that you're involved with. We're going to get that to a second. And this podcast is thought of as a window for people outside Germany to get to see what creative projects we're doing here. And I hope we give some insights about the good things that are happening in Germany and how to approach them when we leave this country for the people outside. So, you are a designer, right?
Yes, that's right. I studied communication design in Düsseldorf because, I'm quite curious and creative person, I think, and that I recognized in my teenage years. And then I was searching for what can I do, and the design education was when I watched out for university. Then it was clear that all the things I can learn there, I would really love to know more about. And that was the way, I started to study communication design, and I really enjoyed my way there.
The last 20 years were also really interesting because the internet happened and cross-media storytelling happened and communities could be built online and offline. So that was a really interesting time for someone in the design field, especially communication design, to find his own place in this ever-changing industry. So I think the journey must have been interesting from project to project and starting off. I asked Ines to tell me a little bit about her story and to write me a mail. And one of the things that you wrote me is that your father was a shoemaker. And I wanted to ask you, what is it like to grow up with someone around someone who does handcrafted work, and what does that teach you that you later found in your design work and your understanding of creative work that affected you?
So I think my father is really a person. He's also really creative and solution-based. And so I spend a lot of my children time in the workshop. So he was repairing shoes, he was building shoes, and he was selling shoes in his kind of small workshop. So I spend a lot of time there watching him and his colleagues working with the hands. And I think this is one thing I learned that or I'm still passionate about, especially right now in the digitalization world, that I see the importance of doing things with the hands and still connected to things and that was also one thing I recognized in my education or my study with communication design. It was really fast that I recognized I'm not creative at the computer. I love to be with people, connecting people, and more that working on concepts and bringing them really to life, and not so much working still at the computer, designing stuff. I think my father learned me to always find a solution, because the repairing thing is like you have a broken shoe, and the goal is to make it again usable, and you always find a way. It's always different, but I think that was one thing I learned really in my early years. Just to start. So I'm often just trying out. So I have a lot of ideas too. a lot of project ideas, and I'm not so much asking people, what do you think, is it good? I'm doing, but then I learned over the years, I'm just trying out. And
so you started early with creative problem solving, and there's always a lot of innovation. Innovation by definition is not necessarily only doing things that are groundbreaking, but small improvements, smart improvements. And in a workshop, you learn the importance of how much a small idea can change the whole concept. So, and as a musician myself, I cannot imagine what it's like not to work with your hands. And I don't know how many sketchbooks and how many... there's something about tangible movement while you're thinking and while you're emoting that our neuroscience, it's like we're leaving one of our greatest skills back if we just sit passively. We're very active with our mind and our neuroscience, soul, creative part of the brain, that just a passive, production-oriented workflow in front of a computer is not necessarily the only way to go. We worked with our hands and our minds for thousands of years, and I think it should be an important part of schooling, if you ask me, to repair things. How can someone appreciate something, not be thrown away if you've never repaired anything? It's impossible to learn. You don't think like that. You think, I have to buy a new one, or I have to buy a repair. And
you learn, if you build a shoe by your own, you learn why it's so expensive, why it costs the money that it costs, because you learn how many different steps are needable,
and materials, the glues you never see, the leather you never see. That's an interesting link to sustainability, because inevitably there's a good engineering principle. When I was studying, I worked a lot with an innovation method called TRIZ, which was developed in Baku in the USSR by studying 40 million patents and then extracting the innovation principles for all the ideas. It was a chart. Think of it like an AI concept from the 40s, like if you combine this and this. And one of the things I realized about the design process is that if you can't think about dismantling something, you can't really design it. What I mean by that is like our phones, for example. We just started thinking about what do we do with this object once it's broken. But if as a designer you know how to build a shoe, how to take it apart, how do you repair it, you have a different connection to the design process.
Yeah, exactly. And this is why design is so important from the beginning. And you see, and this is one problem, my father or my grandfather who did it before, what changed the last centuries. So my grandfather was repairing shoes, and it was quite easy because the people, they take the money because they know how important it is, and the shoes were kind of expensive because there were no fast fashion and the designing was different. Now the design is often, you have different materials which are not they are not designed to repair. They are just designed to look good, or
like a 3D printed sole, for example, compared to wood and elements that fit together.
Yeah, so that was also one thing I wanted to show with my graduation at my design education, that everything around us is designed. So if you look around you, everything. And this is so important, that there are designers and also the companies, of course, that they have the attention to and the responsibility. That's the point, I think. That every person or every company in this world who produces something needs to have the responsibility to think till the end. So
The whole life cycle.
The whole life cycle, exactly. And this is, a really interesting thing, I think. And I wanted to show with the film trailer that everything is designed and how important is design and what's happening. Or I wanted to make a TV show actually about the creative industries, because I had a point in my study where I recognized, okay, wow, I never heard about the creative industries, and that there is a business or economic sector who defines the creative industries. And in Germany, there are 11 sectors combined to this like really huge economic part, which a lot of people don't know, that the creative industries are under the top 5 economic sectors in our region, but also in Germany. And that was really interesting. And then I thought, let's make a TV show about those creative people, because I was wondering, or I really saw in my study all my colleagues are doing so much nice things, and I thought we need to make this more visible.
It's creating awareness about the process as much as the product. That especially in times now with AI, everybody thinks I'll just make a design with whatever AI you use. And okay, that's a fast result, but design is awareness, it's experience, it's political in many ways. Political in the sense that it changes something, which is with aesthetic and its presence, whether it's an object or a functional thing or a website or whatever. So I think you discovered that you are deeply searching for how creativity works and how craftsmanship works. Since you mentioned the 11 sectors, the German creative economy is a very unique economy, because there was a lot of handcrafting, what we would call in German Handwerk. And I think I wanted to ask you, am I correct that Handwerk is going to be kreatives Handwerk, creative is going to be included in this?
No, actually not. It's an interesting point, because we have this definition for Germany, and craftsmanship is not into it. In some parts of design, it's of course included. But for example, the region Sachsen, they have the art craftsmanship, and it's so into the cultural DNA of the region that they got to the point that it's included in their definition for the region. So they have the possibility to get more funding for especially those creative people who are working in this field. And I think this is really important that they changed kind of this definition thing.
Exactly.
And this is, I think, a really important point where we need to look at right now what is changing, what is happening, and how also the industries and also the educational part is changing right now, because we are living in a time where I think in the future or in the next 5 years, there will be jobs we don't know yet what the job description is, because of AI and everything is changing so fast. So I think it's really important to be prepared and to change systems right now, especially in the educational part, because right now the universities and the education is built up to job descriptions, which we maybe don't have in 5 years. And I think the future skills are much more important. And I think it's important to build up a new system and to build up more the skills and to build up the education system more to
adapt
to teach.
To the future.
Yeah, and to teach the skills, the future skills. But they need to define, of course. But I think this is really important to be prepared for the future, and that we don't have like a production designer or a director of film in this kind. We have it right now, more than we have creative people who are really experts in different skills, and then to put the skills into job descriptions. I don't know if you understand
what
I mean. And this is a really hard thing to break off right now. And for example, here in Cologne, there's one really nice and interesting person, the director of the EcoSign design university in Cologne, and she's building up a system like this and also is trying to innovate new formats, because I think also the generation right now, they don't want to study 6 years. Everything is getting so fast, and the young people, they want to learn much faster. And for this, I think we need shorter and other education.
Anybody who studied from our generation knows how slow and boring it can be. And I think learning should become exciting without losing meaning. So I think I'm starting to think in the direction, and I think what comes to mind is actually having a broad spectrum of skills and making a unique mix for every individual based on how he grows, and also focusing on lifelong learning opportunities, because you can't learn something at 22 and expect everything to stay the same for 20 years. So we need to make an adaptable education for people to grow, learn, discover their talents later. And most of us have changed their main occupation a few times by the time you've been in the workforce for 20, 25 years. And
yeah, I think this is also not, I think we can put this on the whole economic world. So the thing that we need to learn every day new, and to be open-minded all the time, and to be open-minded to transform, because everything is changing so fast. And this is one really interesting part also about cross-innovation, because the companies 20 years ago, they had one business case that was working for 10, 15, 20 years. But now the world has changed and gets so complex, and there are so many different parts that the companies needs to react on. So the business cases right now, they are just working for 1 or 2 years. So all the companies are under huge pressure to transform themselves like all the time. And this is a really important thing where the creative people come into role, I think, because how do they do it? Huge companies, they have their own designing parts and stuff like that, but most of the companies in our region are not small, not huge, but in the KMU, you say in German, in the middle part. And I see a huge impact in bringing the creative people together with those companies who have challenges right now. And this is one really nice format we created with CREATIVE.NRW to solve this problem and to bringing together those two parts. Because there are a lot of companies who have these actual challenges and who don't know about the expertises from the creative industries and the creative people. And we did it already 4 years. And it's always really nice because we have these magic moments during the workshop event where company leaders get in contact and in concrete work situations with the creatives. And this is a part which is for the CEOs often like really, this moment of, wow, what is happening here? They are asking me questions I never thought about, and they're coming up with solutions they never expected, and it makes fun.
Isn't it the most fulfilling aspect of living when you see a team of people co-creating and you have a surprising result and everybody feels like a small miracle happened? So innovation management in a normal company can be I'm a production optimization engineer, and in my work, I switched to a different domain very fast, but I saw how stagnant it can be within the structure of a company to get to a solution. And I think innovation management, especially when you bring a super diverse group of people with different interests, different skills, is so surprising. And innovation happens where, in an open culture with an open mind, clear rules and no unnecessary hierarchy, but focus on working and getting a result, which in my opinion is the problem our democracy is facing, that we need participatory
diversity,
cross-innovation as active citizens, not as voters who choose the less of two evils or four evils every election, but we need a more community-driven. And that process can be hard because innovation is also about failure, frustration, missing the point. So it's really good that you're bringing this to the forefront. What were some of your favorite moments in the creative NRW challenges in the last years? Give us some examples of what surprised you. Let's start with.
I have maybe one interesting example, because 2 years ago we started the event with the idea, also like a political and strategic thinking, to search for companies in the Rheinisches Revier. This is the region in NRW where the coal mining was active the last centuries. And now it stopped, which is good for sustainability and our environment. But all the companies there they lost their business case. So it's a huge transformation going on there. And they have a lot of challenges. And that was really interesting. We had at one part a paper industry, which was changing to a new, they started within paper innovation center and stuff like that. So they were rebuilding their business case already, but they wanted to make the location interesting for the public. So that was one challenge. And the creatives, they had a lot of ideas how this location and space can afford more attraction for the society also. So they created a festival, for example, and artist in residency programs, stuff like that. So there were nice solutions. And the other challenge was from a mechanical engineering company. And there was the challenge, which is really interesting. They already had a new business case, and they already had like the teaching tools for the employees. But the employees, they were not motivated to use the knowledge tools. And that was the challenge, how the company can motivate the employees to really have motivation still working for the company, because everything is new. So it's like a real huge transformation thing. And there was one moment where the CEO of the company, a woman who was really like, let's do that. But she, has a lot of things to do. And so our format is 2 days. And she was the 2 days with the creatives in the workshops. And the creatives came up with a really nice idea. It's a gamification idea to put the employees in teams, football teams, and every person is connected to the skills. So they build up teams with the different skills connected to the knowledge tools. So the teams get like really in a competition, but also like motivation to win and coming together. And so this whole method and the process was so inspiring and really helpful for the CEO that she was like, wow. And so we have pictures, and I was there, and the moment where you see this, kind of wow moment in the eyes of the jury and the CEO, what was happening there. And she realized, okay, that's that's really a nice idea, but also the connection to the creatives and to not be 2 days in the just working pressure. So it was really like out of the box thinking and get other perspectives and thinking about questions she never thought about before. Yeah, and she came out and was like, wow, why I didn't had connection to the creatives before. She was like, I would have known about this, because there's so much potential where creatives can help companies in different kind of challenges and problems. And what maybe is also special, because you can say, okay, you can apply a design agency to create the teams and do that. But what is special about our format is that we have the network of all the 11 sectors of the creative industries. So we curate the teams with really different skills also. So we see what is the challenge, and then we see, so at the paper industry challenge, we had, of course, like architects and urban planner persons, design persons, but we also put musicians, dancer, like really the different expertises and skills of the creative industries. And there it's getting like really interesting when they are sitting together thinking about or creating solutions. And this is where I often felt, especially at this one moment, that there's something, really special happened. Yeah.
Don't we all love surprising ourselves? For people listening, since this is within the context of culture and cultural management, cross-innovation has been applied over the last century in cases, because it sounds like let's bring some creatives and play. I always give the example in creative problem workshops that when they couldn't get bubbles out of silicon chips in the beginning of computers, they found a solution by working with French champagne makers, because nobody knows bubbles better and how carbon works. So they couldn't solve the problem for years. And with cross-innovation, suddenly you have someone who has a unique skill that comes into a problem and has a surprising approach to it. So very often the solution is out there, but in a domain that is completely not relevant to the task. And when we build a company to produce, for example, paper, we bring the people, the chemists, the engineers, we bring the people to do the task and who are skilled and have the right qualification to secure to. And very often innovating needs a completely groundbreaking approach to it. And I think you're giving companies and young professionals the opportunity to see what a different workplace would be like. And for people who are studying design and their parents ask, what are you going to do? The right question should be, I have no idea. I'm just going to take my skill set with me and hopefully we'll find different domains where I can provide some value and improve this place. And whether you're a musician who understands sound and space and collaboration and real-time performance, that can be applied to how medical equipment have to function in real time in an operating room. Because if you make a mistake on stage, 20 to 2,000 people know it. If you make a mistake in an operating room, there's not such a big audience, but it's far more serious. But you've learned to manage your stress levels on stage. And I think that's a lot of, we always have this, there's this societal talk about what we should finance, education or arts. I think we need, I'll keep this from this talk. I know that this will stick for me for years. We need to talk about skills.
Yes.
And context.
And one really important skill, I think, especially in this whole AI discussion about what we are losing right now and stuff like that, I think the creatives have huge resilience. And this is really interesting and really important for the creatives to recognize, that they have the skill. Because yesterday, for example, I was on an event and one entrepreneur, she invented or innovated a female sex toy, and she has like an international community. And then came a question to her on the panel asking what she will do when Meta will delete her profile, because she's a content creator. She's selling her product, but because of the community and it's a knowledge theme because it's about female masturbation. She has really a huge community over the whole world. So her answer was, I'm afraid, of course, but I'm really sure that if Meta will delete my profile, my community will find me. And if my product is not working anymore, I will find something else, or I will do other stuff, because she's so, how do you say, she knows what her skills are, and she can put it into the new challenges we have in the world. So she's really, so I thought this was a nice moment to show, which showed me again how resilient creatives are, and they are not afraid of what's happening. Of course, everything is changing now, but I think really important is to concentrate on what you're good in, and just have a kind of Vertrauen, trust just in your human skills inside. And
in the example you mentioned, crowdsourcing personal experience and in a very personal nature, and creating a universal experience over a solution, over a method, over an instrument, over a toy. That is an example of someone who needs to have social skills to make people open up. It's an inclusion process. It's an emancipation process. You have to go past stereotypes, past accusations. So you need to have the courage to just follow the path and have a very clear understanding of what you're providing. Against narratives, and that's what we also need from a societal point. We need innovators and people who contribute, and in the whole spectrum of the human experience. We need a musician who understands that his talent can be applied to understanding how orcas talk, or how scientists do underwater sound. And what I'm trying to say, without sounding too abstract, is as humanity improves, we solve basic problems. And we need to find ways to create new solutions for non-defined problems. And when the internet came, a lot of people, we had an interview with Sandra Cologne, and they had people telling them, oh, this internet thing, it will be gone in 2 years. Well, that didn't go that way. They had people in their process telling them that they shouldn't bother. It was part of the podcast where you think, okay. So we need to see also how diversity of nationality, culture, gender, different experience, all those things create a much more complex experience out of which we can draw knowledge. And it's like music. What would rock music be without blues music, African music, without the classic European instrument building culture? And we always see the product and the result, but there's a lot of innovation and love going into by people who create it. And in the discourse about economy, well, we live in a capitalistic system where funding a project is essential, but the knowledge and the experience of people who need a job and need to provide value entering it is what makes the difference. So I find it really interesting how people need a platform to meet, and I find it very good that CREATIVE.NRW tries to bring people together, and because creatives need to monetize, they need to make a living, and there need to be spaces where we first look for the result and find platforms that would create a job that's surprising in the future.
Yeah, this is actually what we also doing and try to do, giving the creatives like a platform or events where they can meet, where they can empower each other, and where they find a safe space where they found also understood. This is what we really often hear, and what's of course really nice to hear about our work, that if we have a prize event, for example, or networking events, and the people come together, that we create an atmosphere where they can have a kind of safe space just to talk and come in contact and get inspiring words. And I think this is really important, the personal connection.
Society is too streamlined at the moment. It's like you get to the product very fast, you get to the job very fast, you apply on an online platform and you're there, and we need more of a journey. I always make the joke with online dating. It's one way, but there's nothing like going out in life and meeting people and just going through life, and not through a prescribed experience where your data defines it, but where your intuition, your personality goes out of its way to connect in the end.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is also a challenge in these times because time is how I recognize like getting less and less. And it's really important to come again into the flow of just also doing things which are good for you, and get into the personal connection with people and take time for networking, and just talk to people and take your time just for a discussion and a conversation. And not because now I think it's often that we think, okay, we need to be effective and perfect with doing stuff and
content creation, like a podcast is a good example. We've gone off topic 15 times and everybody feels like that's how we talk in the kitchen. That's how we talk. We are here in our formal roles. You're representing the institution you work for and yourself and your values. But the principle is we need to humanize this. And we don't need another an AI-generated question list. It's great that technology exists. We use it. It's functional. But what we need more is like, how do we connect as people so we don't become a state where people disconnect from each other, and we see the problems and how there's no space for young people to meet. Clubs are closing. Safe spaces for marginalized communities are closing because gentrification takes spaces away. Everything's about profit. And in the end, then we wonder whether there's an epidemic of loneliness. It's structural. And if we can build a space, whether in an online format, a space for people to collaborate, a company where people with different diverse interests work and provide value, I think that's a safe cell for society to grow in a healthy direction. And that's how innovation worked. I found out while we were preparing for this podcast that my great-grandfather was building watches in Vienna in 1860. And my family is at the process of going through a family tree analysis, and we just saw where the shop was in Vienna. And I went back to the innovation before the wars and what that was like. And so I can completely relate to how being exposed to... Just think of the story. The story is cool, but it shows you how, for example, we have a digital watch today. We don't need a handmade watch, or it's a luxury product, but that whole design process, a clock is a functional thing, it's a storytelling thing, it's a clothing thing, it's a style thing, it's a prestige thing. It can signal many things, and with the bridge to that was time, and that we don't have enough spaces for people to really have formats where they can show a lot of their skill. And all of us in our job, we're focused to get results, monetize. Inflation and the circumstances don't help for a relaxed, experimental nature in business. So the more that happens, the more we need to make spaces for people to meet. Club culture in Germany has proven to be a very special place for innovation when it comes to formats, inclusion, awareness. In German, there's the Flinta concept, which is a lot about freedom from gender identity and participation. So if we look at club culture, that's one of the few public spaces people can attend as the room in cities is shrinking. And the political problem in Germany has a lot to do with the fact that people who live in smaller villages don't have access to free spaces, to the same type of entertainment. So we've made a society that where cities, and which is also a reality of the structure, don't have the same opportunities. So cross-innovation projects are involving people who do something in the country and bring a different set of skills, or people from the city going to the country. Like, we need to work more on that, and it can only be for fast profit. And that's where I think cross-innovation has its most potential. When the hardest part of problem solving is defining the problem.
Yeah, this is really interesting what you say, because this is, especially about funding the creative industries, because we have our creative project applyment once a year, where a lot of projects and business cases or ideas came to us, like 70 or 80 project papers. And it's always so fascinating what kind of ideas and solutions come out, and how many creative people are really doing that step to just having ideas, of course, but bringing them to paper and bringing them on the road and starting and this is, I think, in the context you also described right now, so important to focus on the impact startups right now. Of course, it's important to have funding for that, but all the ideas about third places, creating locations where people can meet, so the impact from ecological but also from social problems, the ideas, I think they are there, and how to solve these problems or how to handle with that. But I think we really need more support for this. So we are kind of doing that with giving them a prize money and finding individual mentoring persons for the projects and help them getting started. But the startup funding is often still into scale up and tech industry and digitalization. It's also
it's profit oriented,
yeah.
And you cannot be more than an incubator and more than a platform that kickstarts people, gives them some recognition for their work, and also a stage, because we all need a little bit of positive light on us to keep going. As much as we all try to pretend we don't need a community behind us, we are a social animal and we need reinforcement. So giving people actually a moment where they can shine, show their work without criticism, with an open set of ears by people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and be heard. And because often they think, okay, I have an idea, is it good? And then you came to them and just saying, hey, that's a really good idea, start. And often there are one person businesses starting, and they need support and they need the power, finding a team and building up everything. And I think this is what happens when at events, the people coming together, they are finding each other and they are talking to each other. And especially in the Flinter community, I can recognize that a lot of women and Flinter persons are especially also in the startup community. They think, oh, when I pitch for investors, they're just men, and it's really hard, especially the entrepreneur I mentioned with a sex toy for women. She was at Höhle der Löwen, the TV show in Germany, and nobody of the 5 investors wanted to invest in her product, but she was, I also don't want your money because it's so different values and exactly, and not really understanding. And this, I think this is really important, that those groups find each other and build up their own spaces and also connections, and especially for female entrepreneurs, building up networks. And that's happening right now, and this is really nice to see how there's like really something happening and going on. But yeah, there's also much more power needed to make it
society
bigger.
will profit from a diversified portfolio of ideas with diverse people and values, and we don't need to all be on the same stream.
Exactly.
If we're open-minded and we give people space, and a society with a few prevailing narratives imposing themselves will not actually make any progress.
And this is like studies saying that if you have a much more diversity team, you are much more profitable. How do you say? Profitable. Yeah, exactly. So this is, on paper you can see it makes sense.
The whole story of humanity is, if you take a simple example like cooking. Why do we love eating food from 20, 30 corners of the world? We inspire, there's then cuisine changes, there's innovation, I think cooking is a very good example that if we look at the last 30 years, how much eating culture has changed, restaurants, and the same thing applies to businesses, that if we have companies that provide unique products for small groups with a certain set of values that builds a meaningful community. Isn't that what artists do? And I think that's what the creative economy should learn from artists. An artist has a following, a set of values that attracts not only people who share those values, but people who are also have no values, but they like the message, the music. And if we translate that to business, it's the same thing. Like, how can we make a very, very interesting portfolio that is going to adjust to change that is happening rapidly, that's going to adjust to war, energy shortages, social problems? It's not utopic, it's actually really practical that huge corporations who are giants can't navigate fast changes, and small startups cannot make a phone for everybody.
No, and that was also at the panel yesterday. That was really interesting. There were different employees of the creative industries, and one woman who started a game studio 15 years ago. Yeah, she said, "No, I don't want to be a scale-up startup and earn millions of money. I just wanted to make like impact games with my small studio, and I'm fine if we can finance our staff, but I'm not interested in getting huge company and making huge money." So different kinds and perspectives and goals, of course, but I think we have a lot of those entrepreneurs in the creative industries who wanted to make the world a better place with their products, and then it's often not about scaling up and making money, more to...
Ironically, from the perspective of Lincoln, capitalism was about people investing their money in some people finding solutions in a society where money was concentrated in a few oligarchs. Ironically, we got back there again, where a few people around the world. What I mean by that is that when people have more money than countries, we are in a form of oligarchic structures, and We need societies that are active and vibrant, and the startups that makes billions with a creative idea, wonderful. But it's equally important to have a local shop that provides some value and is there for 50 years, like someone's shop made a difference in a neighborhood. It kept the neighborhood vibrant. I went to Hamm yesterday for a business meeting with my team and the Enchoris team. And we walked through the city and half of it was boarded up. And you're like, why? That was a city that had a lot of people who were doing handcrafting. We talked a little bit about how a city becomes dead when the social fabric breaks. And then suddenly you see a little shop where someone does something that doesn't make sense. And you realize, wait a second, he's selling his stuff over the internet. He just happens to be here. So the quality of our life depends a lot on whether can people express themselves. And it's very functional, even if you look at it from a strictly financial perspective. The value of a place goes down, unemployment goes up, social problems show up. So how about simply giving room for, I think it's about narrative. We don't only need the startup who will make return of investment in 3 years and then disappear. We also need the company that will stay in a small city for 30 years, provide jobs, healthy environments, innovation, get paid taxes so people.
Yeah, and this is again the point where we now need creative concepts for building up new cities. So there are more fundings also for urban development, and so they saw the connection, and but I hope that the focus is going more into this funding part to get the creatives more involved into the urban development, but also into the public administration. This is another really interesting theme.
Well, creative bureaucracy is starting to take traction, that we need to change the way.
Right now in Germany, we really, really need this. I think, especially to see how other countries are.
We live next to the Netherlands,
exactly,
who are design thinking is more prevailing there. And if you look at the public sector, or even arts management, we need more a service design approach. We need the service design approach for the mother who plays in an orchestra, or the person who's marginalized who needs to do 5 more steps to get documents. So we need to think of it like a service design, and we won't do that with more bureaucracy and more strict rules. Things have to be thought out and thorough. But that's what design is good at.
Exactly. And I think this is like a really nice or important thing to think about, how we can create those kind of jobs where creatives, so my vision would be to have like creative people who are switching into different companies, or also maybe a restaurant, and like they visiting all the companies and getting into the systems, maybe solving problems there, asking questions, and just helping them to transform our thinking about newer ideas, innovative product innovation, and
it kills stagnation, because if you I'll take the example of a hospital. I'll take the example of clowns at the hospital. It changes the story, the narrative. And what about a hospital that is, I'm giving the example of the health sector, because there's nothing after the military that has more restrictions from hygiene. And then how do people heal? Different urban planning, different design, different approaches. So there's so much room to innovate. And I think the 90s had this effect that we reached a point in society where everything's done. And that's completely not the case. There's so much room to change things. And people who change jobs and go to a different place, it's a migration of knowledge, experience, and it kind of stabilizes society when not everybody's barricaded in his own bubble. So we need to mingle more and work together more. You see that where, for example, here in Cologne, there's a problem at Evertplatz, which is a square, and the neighborhood is so active in participating and keeping this alive and discussing how social space works and how we need to be active as citizens. And active does not always mean activism or marginalized thinking or being in a party. It means like politics in ancient Greek meant things that consider our city. So it wasn't about politics in the way we see it today. Lobbying is important, activism is important. But what you're describing about the future, I couldn't imagine myself staying at a job forever. I never did, and some people are good at it. And after a point, you realize, wait a second, I committed 15 years of my life in what I'm already doing, and I'm still doing it. And I'm not trying to project that success. It comes with ups and downs, but it's a fulfilling journey because it's about providing value and it's creating worth. And I think people who have the feeling that they contribute, that makes a difference. And when you're stuck in a hierarchical system where you can't provide or share your opinion, your unique skills, that creates limitations, and it's not good for people's mental health. It's not good for the community. It's not good for their physical body health. And what are we doing in society if we don't take care of ourselves and each other, in whatever order you want to say those two things? So for me, it's a lot about that. And I think the biological analysis in nature is that we need catalysts to change an ecosystem. And not everybody's an innovator. A known physicist had made the example that ants, and I don't know the scientific accuracy of what I'm saying, but I'm going to tell the story because that's what's more important. Half of the ants are hard workers, and half of the ants are seekers. If you kill a part of that, they distribute themselves like, let's seek, 50% seek and 50% work in a structure. So we're not trying to make chaos, but humanity operates on a 90-10 basis, like 90% in a structure and 10% are seekers. And I think we have the opportunity to change that percentage and be more agile and flexible. And for that, like you said, we need different education, we need different job descriptions.
Yeah, and it's all about democracy and solidarity, I think. Yeah, that we see each other and look what's needed. And I think that's how you mentioned, we have also here, especially in our region, so many power in the creative industries. And the different parts of NRW, it's so interesting how different kinds of companies and expertises in different sectors. And if you see and matches all this, we can build up so many nice things. But yeah, to start all this, we need much more funding and institutions and people.
You need to put the nutrients in the soil for the soil to create.
Exactly.
And there's also this Silicon Valley is a very unique thing that happened in history. We don't need more places like that. We need places where you have a country or a state where unique things happen, and it doesn't get completely industrialized, but it becomes diverse. You have the organic farmer close to a data center that provides energy to the farmers with the excess heat, or whatever correlation effect you can find.
Yeah. And one interesting thing what came to my mind, because yesterday I read again that Wien is one of the most livable cities in the world. And why is it like this? Because Wien has a lot of spaces in the city is public. And I think this is like a really interesting and important part, that cities and also the well-being of the people in cities and regions is dependent on what is private space and what is public space. And in Wien, they bought already like huge of spaces and created public spaces to communicate and like really nice, also third spaces to come together. And I think this is a really important thing. It's not that you can make it like, okay, 20 years ago, so now it already happened, but I hope that the communities and cities learn from that and see the potential, what happens when they're nice. I'm
half Austrian, so I've been to Vienna a lot over the years. And one of the interesting things about Vienna is its hidden anarchy's past. But it was, for anybody out there, that was a very interesting, the public housing in Vienna and the difference it's made over the last 50 years, how much that stabilized the living conditions there. They were one of the first cities who had the €1 per day ticket, like you could travel with public transportation. There's concept for reducing space. Parking space takes up too much space in a city. Nothing against cars, but we tend to overuse them. So again, it's not about being polemic in one direction, but let's look at it systemic. We have a city and 40% of its surface is streets and cars, and nobody has anything against trees. So it's about how we regulate temperature, movement. Social space is, I think, the issue of the next 50 years. We just did I was part of a study for club, there's the term in German, Clubsterben, clubs dying, and it's because of gentrification. And we saw the circumstances in Munich and how many spaces basically, a social space gets lost every time that a club closes or a music venue. So it's not only about the concert venue, it's about the free space, it's about the designers who work there, it's about the people who can express, meet, and that cannot be substituted by a mall. That's a very different situation. So social space as a form of democratic right is really important. And I think the same applies to the job market. We need to have part of the job market be there for people to define the future and innovate, and not only just to fit in the current business. And we depend too much on outside investment in Europe, I think.
The whole economic system, I think, is going wrong, kind of, right now. So what we need is like to changing the whole economic system. It's, I think, it's mentioned like economic 4.0, like the idea of bringing other values into the economic system, kind of just profitable stuff. They are all things you mentioned right now, like the well-being of the people and making places more livable or good places to live in. This is what we need right now. And so we need to switch the system that. And I think there are good ideas, but this is like a huge thing to change. But there are
you can start with small things. And Cologne is a good example. We have Cologne is a city, but every neighborhood is a little bit of a small village in a way. There's still the Fedel mentality, which means you talk to your neighbor. And that's something that's similar to Austria in many ways that you don't see in a lot of German cities. So that creates a measurable quality. That creates, in business we call this direct and indirect effects. But I think the real value of the creative industries cannot really be measured in direct and indirect effects. There's a much bigger social aspect and mental health aspect and innovation. So we need to find ways to bring the discourse about the money we invest in education, in creativity, in art, actually keeps society healthy. And that a healthy society, profitable on the same basis, is sustainable. And it's not about this utopian, if everything was perfectly green or perfectly open-minded. It's a very functional decision to create value. And we see that in the arts. In Germany, there was a program called An Instrument for Every Kid. And not everybody's going to be a musician. And as a parent, I don't care if my kid becomes a musician. It doesn't matter, but I would love him to see the social, how it feels like to play music with people, to experience it. And the people who play in German orchestras, they're fantastic musicians, talented people from all over the world. A school orchestra is not about that. It's about community. It's about having common experiences. And all those concepts can translate to business. So a big part of how we create sustainable value that becomes profit, that becomes jobs, that becomes paid taxes, that finances all things, is about the mentality. I wanted to ask you something about, because we're talking about how a social... the social aspect of a project can affect something. You were involved in starting something called Good Food that was... Can you tell us a little bit about it, what it was and how it started? Because what the point I'm trying to get through is how much of a project is the social network and the community aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I invented the platform food sharing during my work at the TV production company because, there came up the problem of wasting food. I never thought about this problem before because I never really thought about it. And then I got to know the film director, Valentin Thurn, who just had a film in the cinemas, a movie about the whole story of food waste. And that was so crazy. If you see the data about how many food is wasted in private, but also in the commercial part, it's really, really crazy. And I was so shocked that I thought,
that's not possible.
That's not possible. We need to do something against that. And so I came up with an idea to build an app where you can share food. So that was the simple idea. And then I talked to the director and he said, hey, we are starting right now a platform where we want to share food. And so all that came up. And we started the food sharing thing. And that was really, really interesting to see how people from all over the country came together when they heard about the problem. And they heard about, okay, there's community and a movement starting to solve this problem. I want to help them. So it was like really fast growing. It was crazy. And it was, grassroots kind of growing, that in every city they build up their own teams to get cooperations with the supermarkets and stuff like that. And that was really interesting to see when you have a problem and you tell the people. And I think it's also connected to the problem that we all are in contact with that problem every day at home when we have a full fridge and see, oh no, this is already kind of wasted. So there's happening something in the people mind. And then to go to the part to decide I want to be active against this problem. And then, everything came together and the food sharing started, and I was part of the employee team, and it was a really interesting time because so many people with the same goal came together, and the power which was building up there was crazy, and it was really great to see what you can change if you have the people who want to change something, and you can, and that was also nice to see you can do it. It's still, that was crazy. So it was, the idea was going over the whole world. We had asking or emails from different countries from all over the world who ask, how do you do this? And so it was like kind of a franchise thing we built up, and now it's part of the life, and I think really a lot of cities in Germany and other countries in the world, and it's in the mind of the people right now. For 20 years it was like food waste, no, and now you have so
the French government changed the law for,
exactly,
for the supermarkets to those. You see how change happens,
exactly,
and food is a good example where it's only you pay more about availability than you actually pay for food.
Yeah, and it's food. The thing you mentioned before, like we are connected to food much more than maybe to electronic devices, mobile phones maybe or furniture, stuff like that. But I think the connection to food is special. But your question was about social.
No, I was you answered the question, because the question is not important. What was important in this is that how much of the social community aspect, how much that is important in solving the problem.
Yeah, I think you need the problem. And you need a goal, like a clear vision. Maybe it's more the vision. You need a vision to solve the problem. And that was what we had with the food sharing. And then also with the good food, the store I started with a colleague then here in Cologne. She has 250 people working for her for no money, because they are so into the values behind, exactly. Yeah.
Volunteering is also a good example where you see that people don't want to sit at home in front of a screen. They want to participate. They want to offer their help. Yeah. So we can activate a lot in society with meaningful solutions.
Yeah, but I think we need more visions right now. We need more utopias and visions, also in the political thing, also here in Cologne. So we have a new mayor, but I think there's still a vision for the city is missing. And this is, I think you can see that for different kinds of perspectives and themes and problems. If you have a clear vision, then you can get the people together to create a movement or to change something. And this is, like communication part, of course, but I really like the conference Maya Göpel is doing once a year, the Utopia conference. This is exactly what we need right now, I think. Bringing people together to different themes and building up utopias which we can bring into real life. Yeah.
Ideas that were not possible. If you bring a person from 1,000 years ago into a modern city, they will see a lot of things that would seem crazy even 100 years ago. And I think the challenge is not, life is going to change and move forward, but I think what is important for me, because being in the cultural management aspect of things has a lot to do with preserving one of the humanity's more important goods and innovations, music and collaboration, is to make it more sustainable. It's like we can grow, we can make bigger buildings, we can make faster production lines, but we have to keep our humanity and the environment in mind.
Yeah, and this is kind of difficult if we see the VM right now going on with no sustainable idea in any way. Or also the companies. So sustainability right now in the programs or on the agenda, no. This is really, I think, not easy, the times right now. for the sustainability part to start with. But more important is not to go, okay, then if there's no funding for sustainability and no supporting for sustainability things, just try to do projects and start companies with that mindset. Or
I think war and economic crisis kill a lot of momentum in society. But I think as a society, it's important that we don't show our best side after everything is burned, because we show our best side when something bad happens. That's where we all rise to the occasion. And I think it's important to do a little bit of that to prevent the bad things happening. I think ecology and sustainability are a good example where you can change the world on your own with your own decisions, but you can try to contribute a little bit on the collective knowledge we have. And that's where I think cross-innovation is so important. Where can people read more about what you do at CREATIVE.NRW? Obviously your website, but for people who are listening outside of Germany or NRW, what do you think is special about this state and its creative economy? You already mentioned that it's super diverse and spread and in the middle of a transition after industrialization. There we go.
Industrialization.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think, so we are the Ujust region in Germany.
Yeah.
And and this is what NRW makes like really special, because we have those huge cities like Düsseldorf, Cologne, Bonn, and the Ruhr area is so interesting with all this, the transformation part of the industrial change, of course, and also Ostwestfalen. We have like a lot of hidden champions sitting there. So if you see the whole region in a landscape, it's so diverse and interesting, and so this is like a really good base for creative people to start, because you have the infrastructure. It's not like in Bavaria, for example, where you have just one or two like huge cities. We have like really huge cities or regions who are connected with different expertise or companies started and infrastructure. So not just for media or games, I think also for designers and production and musicians. So it's a really interesting but also economic important region, and the creatives can or should maybe also use this more, because what we recognize is also that they are often living in their own bubble space area. We know that from our own. This is also what we, with CREATIVE.NRW, wanted to kind of change or make more visible with our Creative Spaces program. So we had 20 different creative spaces in our region who became, who got a prize, and then we did roadshows with them. And that was really nice to see. If you bring people from the south of the region into the north, or from the east into the west, and they are all dealing with the same problems, but this is again that bringing together the people, connecting, and I think how I mentioned already, we have a huge potential and a really huge power here, and it's more into how we can put this all together to use the power more and to get more out of it.
It's a very unique place. I read a few years ago that the metropolitan area here, which involves all those cities, there's few places on the planet that are similar, one of them being New York, the New York metropolitan area. Of course, different dimensions, but it's the same principle. And growth needs to happen in a different way here. And I guess what you're describing is that CREATIVE.NRW could be the catalyst for a few projects that actually utilize some of the hidden potential of different parts of the creative industries and other industries coming together and creating here new jobs and new ideas. So I think the potential, that's the hard thing when you innovate. You have to make the environment for innovation, but you can't prove with hard financial data how that will translate directly. So the point is, are we willing as a society to make a glass house where we develop something new that will solve future problems, or do we insist on old business models that will change rapidly to the nature of how the world is changing? And I think the way I formulated already is an opinion, but it's more also an opportunity to rethink what our options are, because there's a lot of problems with public funding. Where do we invest?
Yeah, exactly. This is a huge thing too, because we also have a lot of universities here in our region who are teaching creative skills already. Mm-hmm. But also there, so we have a lot of accelerator programs and stuff like that. But the funding thing is, so there are a lot of funding and supporting programs, but also always, or especially in the creative industries, you need to know about what and where, and the creative industries are so diverse and complex in part of the project papers often. So I think this is like a really important role we have with our institution, and my colleague, she's doing like kind of coaching, so creatives can come to us and we have the overview of all the funding and supporting programs to see, okay, it's architecture or design or gaming or more different parts together, which is fitting there. But the other thing, so we have the public funding, but then we have the private funding. And this is like in Germany quite special combined to other countries, I think, because also the startup mentality and the risk funding is in other countries, especially in the USA, much more bigger.
Germany is a big risk-averse country by design.
Exactly, yeah. And so this is like, really special thing to get the private funding and the investors, especially for the creative ideas and for the impact startups. But there are, for example, the Impact Factory here in Duisburg. They are doing like really important work. They are cooperating with the Stiftungen.
With funds, basically.
Yeah, with funds and finding investors who are interested to invest in impact.
Okay.
And they are there. But they need to get matched too, so that you can get the money, which is there in the right projects to make a better world. So this is a really important thing, and they are doing really.
So the interconnection, I think, what I'm hearing from you is that with CREATIVE.NRW, you're trying to be the interconnectors. So all those beautiful things can be connected either over knowledge sharing, community sharing, financial ways, and providing an infrastructure for things to...
Exactly. So making visible the creatives, the projects, but also being a translator times. Example for the cross-innovation thing or event. We translate between the companies and the CEOs and between the creatives, because they are talking different languages often, and so we are between there and bringing them together. So this is like a really important role we have to,
So you break the cultural barrier in between business and that world, and then things can happen. I think people in the music industry, which by default is more artist-based, I think that's the challenge there too, to see how do we grow from our concepts of what performance is, the venues, how do we reclaim public space, reclaim a different experience besides the prescribed recording, streaming, performance venue. I think the music industry needs at the moment a new push into a more culturally engaging, outside the bubble of each niche. So I think that's what the problem in the music industry is too. So cross-innovation is needed even for the creatives, in my view. And I think the key is to diversify, both in ideas and approaches and narratives and even things like gender, and creating different teams and different ways to work without one imposing on the other, but with a more diverse portfolio. That's how most ecological systems stay sustainable.
Yeah, and we need more corporations, especially in times of funding is less and
it's not abundant,
different
but
economic times. So it's more into so the corporations are getting more and more important, coming together, see what can happen when we do a project together and combine resources.
Yeah,
and,
big corporations also have to innovate, change, adapt, and some people with a different perspective could really help them do that, especially because business models will change so fast. And I think it's going to be a surprising time. We went from no electricity 100 years ago and no internet and no radio and no phone to where we are now. So, and society will change. So I think it's important to keep an open mind to everybody wants to innovate, but the point is, how do we create a culture where that can happen organically? And it's a lot about failure, and very often ideas like food sharing or urban gardening, they're there to change things until a bigger change comes. And so they're catalysts for something better. They're not meant to be the end result of the process. And a lot of companies solve a problem, and once they solve it, they don't need to exist. It can be solved on a different scale. So macroeconomically, innovation is not something you can only measure with direct and indirect effects. So I think the creative industries should be approached very differently from something like the automotive industry or other sectors of the economy. And I think the challenge is that the funding and the narratives come from other industries and don't fit the unpredictable nature of this industry, even though the benefits usually go back to other sectors. Is it true that creatives the way creatives are included in creative industries will change? That, for example, a designer in a company that is not in the creative sector will be counted in. So the point is, how do we really count creatives and the industries? Because creativity is not limited to the sector, but it's spread everywhere. Like, I think that's challenging to measure.
Yeah, so you mean that also in the automobile industry are working designers and they are not into... Yeah, this is
exactly
a huge discussion where politicians and also institutions of the creative industries are discussing about, because the UK, they have like a huge, really wide definition.
Exactly.
Where those people are included, the designers of Mercedes-Benz, for example. And here in Germany, it's not. Yeah, so they are...
I'm trying to show what the problem is, that politicians also need facts to make decisions, to give them some credit, and they have a limited budget and have to answer to the people who vote for them. And so democracy is a process, but it's also about how we measure things. And creativity, well-being, sustainability are not that easy to measure.
No. Yeah, so I think maybe one example, which is a nice idea, which goes in this direction, is the program of Jakob Bilabel. He invented the transformation manager in cultural institutions.
Okay.
So he built up an education format where creatives can, or people from everywhere, of course, can learn to be a transformation manager in a cultural institution, because the cultural institutions have like really hard challenges, of course, but especially in the sustainability part. So, and this is like I mentioned before with the educational problem. He started a program which is just, I think, 1 year. And also you can do it beside your job. And then you are you have a certificate that you are a transformation manager, and you learn all the skills to coach or to help the institutions to make the transformation, how to reduce
carbon footprint.
Exactly, emissions, material, all things that are included to transform to a sustainable company. And I really like this idea of this like really simple kind of education part, and to empower people to get into companies to help them with this part. So I think this is a nice idea which we can actually build up new education formats for also other companies. So creative transformation manager for hospitals, for example, or in the hospitality sector.
We need faster interventions, faster life cycles, so people can get knowledge and skills fast to help and engage. Very interesting.
Yeah. So I have one creative. She worked as a creative driver for the mayor of her city. She always wanted to find a way to work for her, but she had no. She didn't want to sit in the office with administration parts. She just wanted to have a lot of time with the mayor to talk with her and give her ideas and to coach her in a creative way. And so her idea was, I will become your creative driver. So we have a lot of time together because I can drive you to all the
interesting events
you have, and during that we can talk. And so she had like really her business card was with the creative driver. I really like that idea, and I think these are examples for easy ways to disrupt the system and bring creatives in concrete connection to where they can solve problems and
be creative. In the past, kings used to have jokers and a lot of characters in their next to them or around them, exactly to have that different opinion. And I'm not suggesting going back there, but what I'm suggesting is that principle that you need to have diverse people around you and different opinion is actually really helpful for any form of leadership. And historically, that's what makes good decision making, when you have a lot of perspectives.
Yeah.
Ines, we could talk around creative stuff for hours. Thank you so much for visiting, and thank you for giving us a little bit of a taste of what this state is about and what you do at CREATIVE.NRW. People can visit CREATIVE.NRW to read more about what you do, about the creative challenges and creative projects. I strongly encourage anybody in the cultural sector to do some reading into cross-innovation. And since in our industry we're trying to engage audiences and communities, there's a lot of potential. Maybe that's something we should talk about, trying to get some cross-innovation with the cultural sector.
Yeah, we have the deployment starting in October for the creatives, and right now for companies. So every time there's someone interested,
they can apply.
People can apply.
And what I keep from this talk is that connecting the interesting parts and different industries and people is one of the things we can't neglect in the next years, especially with AI being a prevailing narrative and a main business disruptor and change. So it's a good time to focus on our skills and connect with each other. Thank you again for taking the time, and I hope that this gives an opportunity for you to reflect on what you guys do and how you communicate it to people. And yeah, that's what I'm still processing a few of the things you said, honestly, because I realized that we're in the middle of a very big change in society. And a talk like this is a reminder, because everybody of us is caught up in his everyday life. But things are going to change, and it's innovation is a requirement now and not an option, slowly. And I hope you can communicate that with your projects and help young people find their way to change things to the better.
Yeah, that's why I love my job, because I can bring the people together to start like the projects we need right now, and this is really nice. And thank you so much for the inspiring talk.
Thank you, Ines.
Yeah,
we'll catch up in the future.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.